So I've had my Switch OLED for 2 weeks now, and I've gotta say I completely underestimated just how great the display would actually look. Internally, the system has stayed exactly the same, all the games play the same as far as performance goes, but I found myself actually enjoying them and playing them more often than expected, simply because of how appealing the OLED display makes the games look in comparison to its predecessor. So how does the OLED compare to the original? The main change here is obviously the screen. The original Switch has a 6.2 LCD screen, while the OLED has a new glass 7-inch OLED display. In handheld mode, both of these are at 1280 by 720 resolution, but the OLED makes all of the difference, giving colors more life. The darker colors feel darker, the brighter tones feel more vibrant, colors just feel more saturated and lively overall on the OLED model. Going back to the original Switch, feels like I'm playing my games with literally a coat of dust on them. What stood out to me right away, and probably the most aside from the colors, was the bezel. More screen space and less bezel is something that I've been wanting for a super long time now, and I've always thought the bezels on the original Switch were distracting, so it's nice that we finally got rid of those. It is definitely a game changer. This new kickstand is one of the other big upgrades on the Switch OLED, and it takes up the entire back of the console. It's more functional and has an overall better build quality. Here is an original tabletop advertisement showing the kickstand in action, and if you're like me, yours looks nothing like this. On this V1 Switch that I have here, I have no idea where I put the kickstand. You could still find the SD card slot underneath the kickstand on both models though. In their tablet form, they are a little bit different. You'll notice that the OLED is actually longer than the original, and the power button and volume rockers are a little bit different. Because the OLED is a tad bit wider with the Joy-Cons on, this does mean that some accessories that you might already own will not work with the OLED. It might fit either too snug or not fit at all. Moving into the audio department, Nintendo does promote the OLED to have an enhanced experience with audio. It's better sound, something along those lines. However, when I was comparing the two, I couldn't tell much of a difference other than that the OLED was slightly louder than the original. There isn't really a way for me to really show you guys how good the screen can look or how loud the sound can sound, because it's just a video. You're going to have to see the real thing to really hear and embrace the visuals. But I will let this play here, and you can kind of tell in this overview shot of them side by side that the OLED just has less of that faded filmic look like the original does. As it hovers over here to the original, you'll see that it has kind of a gray overlay to the entire screen, whereas the OLED is more like true to the colors that are trying to be shown on that screen. Both the OLED and the original Switch offer auto brightness, and when this is turned on, you will notice that the screen just gets overall darker. Depending on the game, I'd like to have this on or off. Something that is different is the OLED by default has Vivid mode turned on. When you switch between Vivid mode and Standard, you'll notice that your game just gets a little bit more saturated on Vivid mode. On the original Switch, this feature is non-existent. You can't even find it in the settings. I can't speak for V2 owners, but coming from the V1 or the Launch Edition Switch over to the OLED, battery life is something I knew was going to be better, but as I've been using it, I've really noticed it, and I've been able to just play a lot more. Even while I was filming this video, I noticed that the V1 Switch was just dying. It was pretty much dead by the end of me recording this. They both had a decent amount of battery before I started filming this, but I did notice the V1 battery going down a lot faster than the OLED. I didn't do any sort of crazy test where I leave them both running with the game on and see which one dies first or anything like that, but what I will say is it will depend what game you're playing. If you're playing a more demanding game, an open world game like Breath of the Wild, it's obviously going to die faster. It's going to die even faster on the V1 than it is on the OLED. Over on the Nintendo Life website, they do say that with a game like Breath of the Wild on the original V1 Switch, you will get around 3 hours of playtime, whereas on the OLED you get somewhere around 5.5 hours of playtime. The dock itself also received quite a bit of changes. None of these actually result in a better image or anything like that. It's still going to output 1080p or up to 1080p on your TV or monitor, wherever you're playing. There are quite a bit of physical changes. They did change the color, some ports. They added the Ethernet port and replaced the USB port that was there before, but you still have your two USB ports on the outside. On the new dock, the back piece does come right off. It's not that I broke it. That makes it a little bit more comfortable to deal with cables and things like that. On the original dock, it just hinges down. I think you could take it out, but it's definitely intended to just be folded up and down. The OLED can be used with the older dock and vice versa. You can use the OG Switch on the new dock, and you can use the OLED on the older dock. I am aware that people have broken down the dock and looked into the new chip that is inside there, and really, I want to refrain from any speculations of 4K or upscaling or anything like that. As of right now, you're not capable of upscaling or doing 4K on the new dock, but what you can do is actually update the firmware on the dock. If you go to settings, you will find that there is a new feature or a new tab for you to update the dock. I don't know what updates we're gonna get on there, but it's on there for future purposes. I may have missed some of the changes between the OG Switch and the OLED model, but for now these are some of the standout features. I didn't want to make this video too long or too in depth. This is kind of an overview of the main differences that stand out to me right away. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it informative, make sure you guys leave a thumbs up down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe for future content. This is my current console family, looks pretty cool in black and white. I will have coverage for all of these devices in the future. That's it for this video. I will see you guys on the next one.